So last night, a little bit of a strange evening of sports viewing. I watched the Braves-Dodgers game. I watched Arch Manning on ESPN2, his high school football game at Isidore Newman. And I'm going to talk a little bit about both of those and also tie it in with this whole loaded show that we've got coming your direction. So let me just give you an idea of where we're headed right now. We are scheduled to be joined by the WWE champion, Roman Reigns, in the next segment, which should be a lot of fun. We've got Art Briles to talk with in the second hour of the program, and then we are scheduled to wake up my buddy Todd Furman out in Las Vegas to get you ready for the NFL and the college football weekend to come. But I wanted to start talking about how strange it feels to feel sorry for a guy as accomplished as Clayton Kershaw is at his profession. And you guys know, if you listen to this show, that my fourth grader has become a huge Atlanta Braves fan. So I took him out of school. We talked about that for his summer, for his birthday back in September. We went down and stayed at the Omni Hotel there in the Battery, where you can watch games into the Atlanta Braves field from. All of that we did as a part of his being a Braves fan. So last night, I am watching the game with my 10 and my 12-year-old, and we're having a lot of fun watching the game. And I can't help but feel sorry for Clayton Kershaw, because there's really no example that I can even think of for who Clayton Kershaw is like when it comes to the postseason just falling apart. He's 11-12, I believe, is the record now, all-time in the postseason. And he has obviously pitched in a lot of big games, but he has never been able to replicate the success that he has in the regular season in the postseason. And all the Dodger fans out there, after that first inning on all the days run together on Wednesday, felt like they were back in this series. And I was having this conversation on Fox Bet Live yesterday with Cousin Sal, and he was saying, I'm betting on the Dodgers because they've got Clayton Kershaw on the mound. And basically that's a 50-50 proposition, even when you feel like Clayton Kershaw should have a tremendous advantage like he does, because the Braves are trotting out a guy who's never really pitched in a big game, period, and suddenly he's in Game 4 of the NLCS. And that guy, Bryce Wilson, 22-year-old pitcher, doesn't ever have any experience at all, and he throws a one-hitter when he's out there for 6 innings. The one hit is a home run for the Dodgers, but then the Braves fight back, take command of this game. Clayton Kershaw, everything just kind of comes undone for him in the bottom of the 6th inning, and from there, the Braves are now in an incredibly commanding position with a 3-1 series lead that I don't think anybody, Braves fans or Dodger fans, really expected to see happen in Game 4. I think most people, if they are being honest, if they are Braves fans, they expected for the Braves to lose this game after the way Game 3 went. And I think most Dodger fans, even given the star-crossed career of Clayton Kershaw, expected to also win this baseball game and for it to be a 2-2 series going in with 3 games left. Now, I'm not saying the series is over. Certainly the Dodgers could win on Friday, Saturday, Sunday. They've won 3 games in a row several times over the course of this season. They could certainly do it to the Braves, and anybody who is an Atlanta area sports fan has certainly lived through some inexplicable losses over the years. But this was, I thought, a really surprising outcome. And I don't know if I'm the only person out there who is rooting for the Braves, but also simultaneously likes Clayton Kershaw and hates that the storyline for his career is this guy is probably the best pitcher of his generation, and he can't quite get over the hump. And a part of that is also associated with the Astros getting caught cheating. And by the way, the Astros won another game to force a Game 6 against the Tampa Bay Rays. We'll see what ends up happening in that series. Maybe the Astros are going to advance to the World Series again and just be the villain that everybody hates, whether it's the Braves or the Dodgers that end up advancing. But Clayton Kershaw has so many things going so well for him. And the postseason failure, I just feel so bad for him. And yet again it happened, and it happened in such a crazy way with Bryce Wilson, a guy that most of us wouldn't have even recognized in a lineup if they gave us like 5 different guys and they said, hey, which of these guys is starting the game for the Atlanta Braves tonight? If you gave me 5 different athletic-looking dudes who are 22 years old, I couldn't have picked out Bryce Wilson. I wouldn't have known who Bryce Wilson was. Most of you wouldn't either. And I understand hardcore baseball guys out there like, oh, I would have known who Bryce Wilson is. All right, congratulations. I did enjoy seeing his family in the crowd, his mom and his dad cheering like crazy. I can only imagine how stressful it would be if you've got kids and they play Little League sports, and you think about how sometimes into those games you can get as a parent. I can't even imagine having a kid who's actually playing in a game that is an incredibly high level. But the Braves, I don't want to jinx them. So for the Atlanta area sports fans out there, I'm not trying to make you nervous. But the Braves are in incredibly good shape as they roll into the weekend. Massive favorites now to advance to the World Series. And if you questioned how crazy 2020 is, it would be that the Braves would suddenly become white hot in the postseason and run up an 8-1 record and be 1 game away from advancing to the World Series, where, frankly, they might be a small favorite against either the Astros, I would imagine, or the Tampa Bay Rays, if that ends up being the matchup in the World Series. So I enjoyed watching the Braves playing against the Dodgers and seeing what was going to go on, even though I felt a little bit bad for Clayton Kershaw. As if that were not enough, I also was watching simultaneously, and this felt even weirder, I was watching Arch Manning play. And I was watching Arch Manning play, and I was thinking to myself, he looks so much like Peyton Manning already when you actually watch his body language on the field. He made some pretty impressive throws. I mean, you're watching a sophomore in high school. And I saw our guy Chris Mannix tweet that it felt a little bit LeBron James-like. And if you're old enough to remember when LeBron James was a high school player in Akron, they would put his games on, and he became a luminescent celebrity well before he ever got to the NBA. We were watching so many of his games on television, and I kind of feel like that's what's going to end up happening with Arch Manning, is that they're almost branding him already as the LeBron of high school athletics. And then I was sitting there and I was thinking, man, this is crazy, because I've got a 12-year-old, I've got a 10-year-old, and I've got a 6-year-old. And I was watching the game and I was thinking, man, this would be so tough of an era to grow up as a superstar athlete, young kid, in a social media era where everything you do is getting scrutinized. And I'm thinking about that from a dad's perspective. And I know Cooper Manning a little bit. I like him. He's a really good dude, the oldest of the Manning brothers. And then they say Arch Manning is not on social media at all. And I was like, that is genius. Because I think about that a lot right now with my own kids. I've told them, hey, no Twitter accounts, no Instagram accounts when you're young. They get on YouTube and they watch that stuff. But I don't want them exposed to what I think is the overwhelming negativity of social media while they are so young, and they still have what I would like to think is the ability to not get polluted by that. And I think it's so easy for young athletes, particularly people who might be in the public eye, to find themselves wrapped up in that. And when you've got yourself on ESPN as a sophomore and you're one of the top quarterback recruits in the country, and as if those were not two big enough things, which they are, your uncle is Peyton Manning, your uncle is Eli Manning, and your grandfather is Archie, 3 of the best quarterbacks that have ever played, certainly the best father-son combo that has ever existed, and then you're the 3rd generation there growing up as Cooper Manning's son, and he looks so much like I said, Peyton Manning. You can just see it in the way that he moves, and my bet would be that he has watched his uncle play so many games over his career as a kid growing up. He just watched Peyton play so many games that in some way he has just sort of aped the mannerisms of his uncles, and in particular of Peyton. But this guy, I mean, every time I mention Arch Manning and how many games I think I'm going to end up watching of his, everybody in the mentions turns into an immediate battle over where he's going to end up going to school. Is it going to be Ole Miss, like Cooper and Eli? That's who I would make the favorite, by the way. And I think if Lane Kiffin is still there, I guarantee you Lane Kiffin is recruiting this kid like crazy. Is he going to go to Duke if David Cutcliffe is still there because of the relationship with Peyton and with Eli? I would say that's a decent chance of that if he wants to go to a school that's that academically inclined. Is he going to go to Tennessee like Peyton did? Is he going to stay home in Louisiana and go to LSU and try to be the next Joe Burrow? Is he going to try to create his own different legacy and go to a place like Georgia or Oklahoma? There are so many schools out there and so many fan bases that are all going to be competing for the next Manning, and it's going to be so unbelievably interesting to see where he might end up and what that battle might look like. So I don't know that I would have anticipated on a random Thursday in October that I'd be flipping back and forth with my boys and watching and thinking just how young this kid is to be a sophomore in high school, to be 15 years old, 16 years old, and already be 6'2", 180 pounds, and be trending towards the great pocket passer that he could end up being, and being this huge, massive recruit. And these games are already on ESPN. But I was also thinking, I bet a lot of people tune in to watch this thing. And I bet a lot more of his games as a junior and a senior are going to end up on as well. And so as you kind of work through and think about all of this, it's pretty wild to think about where his career may head from here. All right, a couple other things that we're going to get into during the course of today's program. We're going to talk, and I'm going to talk about this, I think, at the bottom of the hour after we talk with, by the way, Roman Reigns, the WWE champion, who is going to join us next. Now, I didn't even realize this until I started doing my research, but Roman Reigns played 4 years with Georgia Tech football. So I'm going to have to ask him about this big Georgia game on the road against Alabama, what he thinks about that one. I also want to talk a little bit about what Nick Saban said in his coach's show last night regarding whether or not he thought he should be allowed to coach. And I also want to dive in to Le'Veon Bell joining the Chiefs and what I think is by far the most interesting game going on in the NFL. And I actually think this one feels a little bit under the radar. Aaron Rodgers against Tom Brady. This is probably the last time we're ever going to see these two guys play head-to-head unless they saw each other in the postseason.